Hi everyone, and welcome to the All Things ITSM Global Podcast, coming to you from SITS in London. I'm Kirsty McGowan. I'm here with Simone Jo Moore.
Thank you.
Suresh GP.
Hello everybody.
And we're talking with Patrick Bolger, who we usually see sitting in the other
Usually a host.
seat. But,
Usually a host.
A pleasure to talk to you, Pat.
Nice to be a guest for a change.
It is.
So we call him Pat. We don't call him as Patrick Bolger. He's got us. Come on, Pat.
Yeah, sound like my wife now.
I'm sorry. But quickly, and everybody is talking about collaborative IT. And I'm puzzled. I want to ask you the question: what is collaborative IT? And can you please explain or enlighten us with some more insight?
Right, so collaborative ITSM, as we've defined it, is basically using the same kind of disciplines we've been using all along, the traditional best practice disciplines, but actually making them easier by adding more kind of social collaborative concepts to them. So the idea previously that we build up a big kind of knowledge repository, big knowledge base, and someone or some people will be responsible for that, and it's their job to maintain it, that kind of doesn't work. Or if it does, it's too bloody difficult to do.
Yeah, it is very hard.
So basically, collaborative ITSM basically allows you to do an awful lot of stuff like sharing documents, ideas, comments, and actually just through conversation, you build up stuff on the fly. Right. So a good example would be something that's happening in all IT organizations, in all companies, is basically this concept of peer-to-peer support. Yes. I've got a problem, I don't call the service desk.
No, you don't.
I speak to Suresh and say, how do I do this, or I Google it, or whatever it is. Well, our principles there are, why are you not making better use of that capability? If people want to do that, why are you not actually enabling them to do it?
It's the
so
knowledge.
basically, yeah, exactly. So the concept would be, I would ask a question in a workspace, for example's sake, and one of my colleagues might come in and say, hey, here's how you do this, I've done this before, maybe you might include a link to a video or something along those lines. Other people might want to know the same thing, and they'll go in and say, oh, that's a really good answer, and they go, vote, 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 vote.
Right.
And what happens then? All your really good knowledge comes to the top, and all the stuff that's of less interest flows to the bottom. But the same concept then applies to not just knowledge, but everything can become a social object.
Yeah.
And as a result, I can like meetings, I can like servers and follow them and things like that. And actually the information then comes from those social objects and finds you. So collaborative ITSM really is about tearing down the silos within your organization and embracing a more social way of working, so that actually what you do becomes transparent and out in the open, and people can see the activities, and it's a much more progressive way of working.
So does it give you options too for a bit of gamification of that knowledge side of things?
Yeah, well, I think the gamification side of things, we've stopped it simply at the ability to award a co-worker for something. So you can basically go, hey, thank you so much, you did a really good job there, you know. And that to me is enough.
Feedback.
That's enough.
Kind of an incentive for him to start promoting and sharing information.
That's part of one of the KCS principles, is that knowledge reputation. Actually gaining a knowledge reputation and say, yep, they've got good answers, they're my go-to.
Well, there was a day when you'd hold on to the knowledge, or people were almost encouraged to hold on to knowledge. But now they're encouraged to share everything that they know. And really these collaborative concepts is basically stuff we learn from social. So the way people like to converse in social is not how we do it in traditional systems, it's not how we it's just easy, it's really, really simple to do these things. So these social tools that taught the enterprise are actually, hold on a minute, should I really be paying for big on-premise deployments? Should I be paying a fortune to maintain them and to upgrade them? When actually, in social world, like so, if I'm using Facebook, what version am I using? I have no idea.
It doesn't matter.
It's constantly upgrading, and that's someone else's problem.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that really needs to apply within the enterprise, in that we source our solutions from external service providers. The maintenance of that, that's up to them. That's up to them. We just have to have enough mechanisms in place to make sure that we can cope with change. And if you look at Facebook, you don't need to know what's coming in this release and stuff. I mean, it's there if you want it. It happens, and it happens in such small and incremental amounts. Actually, you don't worry about it because you just get used to new stuff.
Those big bang changes used to upset people. But
exactly.
Now, it changes every few days. Something little will come in, but you don't really notice it because it's not a big bang approach.
We could do 2 or 3 releases in the space of a day. Just in the space of a day.
Right.
Actually, the development team may do couple of dozen or maybe even 100 in the space of a day, but they won't necessarily make their way into a production environment that are available to all customers. We might package them up and just release them, but that shouldn't be the customer's way.
No,
it shouldn't be.
It's just
Well, that's supposed to be the invisible side, isn't it? And it takes the worry away.
But it's then, what we're doing now, I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff on here, but we started to do this free implementation thing. So the concept being, really, if you're buying a piece of software, all you should have to worry about is using the software. That's it. That's it. The rest should be down to whoever's providing that to you to not only provide the software, provide you with enough knowledge and experience to actually go and use it properly. And in actual fact, if the software is not intuitive enough to use, then we fail as an application developer. But the free implementation thing comes from the fact that actually these things are pretty easy to set up now. You're no longer writing code and doing things like that. It's basically dragging a few boxes around places, representing processes, and off we go. So that's one of the things we started to do now, is to say, anyone who wants to use the software will implement it free of charge. So
that's a bold thing.
That's pretty different.
Because I know we have seen a lot of vendors, because we will think there's a separate cost involved in terms of implementation, because it's a huge chunk of work. Don't get me wrong. It's a huge chunk of work. It's getting the contacts, the directories, Active Directory sync up, and all this stuff. It takes a lot of effort to do that. And if you're doing it free, then you're doing some serious stuff.
Well, it's the same principle. I mean, you've got no concept really of using Twitter and having to integrate it with Active Directory or anything like that. You know, people subscribe to these things. It takes away all those worries. All the integration is loosely coupled. It's just a simpler way to do things. And you shouldn't really have that overhead anymore. And I think in the enterprise world, businesses are not going to fund complexity, big complex implementation projects, even more complex upgrades. That stuff should just happen. It already does happen in consumer world. So in the enterprise environment, you'll hear people going, oh, security and release and all this kind of stuff. But things are moving this way. You talked to Kevin Holland yesterday about service integration and management. So at the end-to-end delivery of the services, really, those are the bits I need to worry about. And the supplier then has to do their bit and to do it well, so that you just have to worry about what your customer gets.
I mean, that is the only place that you get the value.
It is.
What your customer receives at the end. Nothing that happens along that line in the middle really counts for anything.
Again, there was another example used the other day. It's happened all across every industry. So a good analogy to use is the car industry. I remember the days when you'd have a garage and you pull in, it would have bits and points and feeler gauges and stuff like that. Now when you open the bonnet of a car and you look at it, it's kind of like the big plastic panel, which really should say, do not touch. This has got nothing to do with you. So garages now, so you pull into a service station on the motorway or something, they're not servicing cars, they're servicing people. That's what they're doing. And that's much more about what we're doing. We shouldn't be servicing the technology, we're servicing the people that actually use it. And that's the direction this is heading.
In fact, I want to understand, because there's so many vendors out here, and I want to talk about from an IT industry, how's the IT budgets looking like? Are they still, and the problem I have is I have a customer who buys a tool and he works it for 3 years, and he said we have a new budget, they bump it up into another tool. And what's the kind of trend? I'm failing to understand the customer perceptions.
I see that trend breaking, because if you look across IT organizations, they're looking for money to do this, looking for money to do this. They're having to justify everything, and businesses are no longer prepared to invest more money just to keep the same stuff happening, or marginal, imperceptible improvements. They're not prepared to do that. So I talked about this in my presentation today, and what I said was IT organizations have been investing to stop existing value from being destroyed. So that's it. They already provide an infrastructure, it's already running, so that's existing value. You can't keep plowing money into it to stop existing value from being destroyed. You'll have to invest something, but where the real stuff is happening is investing in technology for new value.
That's right.
So that would be shorter development times, better product quality, better support to customers, more sticky customers, loyal, all of that stuff, reducing sales cycles, whatever it happens to be. Companies will invest in that. And if you're an IT organization, you go to your CFO and say, hey, here's a piece of technology that could help us
reduce the cycle time.
Exactly.
Yeah, things have changed.
They'll fund that.
I mean, 10, 15 years ago, IT used to go to the business and say, I need these this number of servers, I need this much storage space.
I remember, I used to be asking for the money.
I need these racks, and the businesses just say, I don't understand what you're talking about, so it must be important, so here you go. I mean, that doesn't happen anymore.
Doesn't happen anymore,
they come to you and say, we need these outcomes. How are you going to do it?
Exactly.
And have you seen the same thing happen with legacy systems? And we're talking about not plowing money into something that, especially, it gets more expensive to run as it gets older, just like a car. You know, an old car takes a lot more work and money.
And they have a lot more risk.
There's more risk. So have you seen the trend of legacy systems starting to, are they disappearing now?
I think there's some legacy systems that you just can't get rid of, right? And in some organizations, and it scares the hell out of me when I look at some of these organizations who are running on an application that somebody developed X number of years ago, that somebody within the organization still knows about, but and core parts of their business are actually running on this. And I'm sorry, if I was a CEO of a company and I find out that that's the case, I'd be looking for someone's head. Because you're too exposed to a situation like that.
So I think,
so I don't think these things get replaced as a big bang thing. What happens is a piecemeal. So you'll see, this type of application get rolled out over here, and bits and pieces of these applications kind of tend to get replaced.
But are you seeing them managing that change and removal of legacy systems the right way? Are you seeing them being able to do it?
I think it is happening more and more because more organizations are beginning to realize that actually for us to manage this internally is a really inefficient way to do it. So you're seeing more, and actually business units taking those decisions into their own hands, where they're basically saying, right, okay, you, Mr. IT, you've got your old legacy way of doing it, but here's an application that we can provide from the cloud. It's by this provider. It costs X dollars or pounds per user per month, and it's a no-brainer. And sometimes those legacy systems are disappearing, not because IT got involved, but because a business unit has said that's a much easier way for us to do it.
Then I'm actually that's the project I'm doing for one of my customers at the moment, is helping them turn off a legacy system because basically the hardware that it's on cannot be replaced. They've got one backup, but they're terrified that they're going to end up losing both. So we've got a very short time period to grab a cloud application basically and replace, and they'll replace way more functionality than they've got.
But that's the point. That's the point.
They're
and
getting bigger and better for less.
And simplify it, and the cost of ongoing maintenance is not doing that. It's doing this.
It's going down. They're not going to have those maintenance costs anymore.
If you look at simple things like storage, I can't remember what, but it's a fraction, like at several zeros and a 6 or something like that for storage per gigabyte in the cloud. And you still got people running off site with tapes and stuff like that. It's just madness, But I mean, you do have to have some of these legacy systems. They can't be replaced, but where they can, organizations are doing it. And if IT's not leading the way, business units are leading the way and say, look, we need to change this. It's not working.
Exactly.
So coming on to this SITS, and this time I observed a different set of audience, and I wanted to understand from you. There was a set of service desk people, and then we have a set of vendors, consultants, trainers, and other stuff. There's a distinct gap, connect between them. And I and James were just talking about a few things and saying, we don't have an ability to connect with them rather than they do, and we stick on with your own groups and stuff like that. The whole point is defeated.
I understand the frustration, and myself and James have spoken with that from time to time. So a couple of positives I see coming out of that. First and foremost, I'm seeing more connections within the community. And there are people I've met for the first time in real life. And when I think about it, I think, no, we've been talking we haven't met actually in person.
You actually think you have.
And
you can't even give someone a big hug and then you
exactly. I mean, Tristan, I met him for the first time here at this event as well. That was the first time. So that community is getting bigger.
It is.
Now, what I am seeing as well is that we're getting a few more practitioners coming into that community. And the only way we need to join those two up, because I completely agree, you have these people at this level talking about fairly high level stuff and progressive stuff. And then the people at the back end think, I want to build a CMDB. And we're bringing more and more of these people into the community. It's not happening fast enough, and that's frustrating.
It is starting to happen.
It is starting to.
It's good that they're coming in, but you need to lift them up. It's again the back to basics. They need support. And you cannot just talk about this level. They want people to just carry along with you when you just go up.
That's why I like the forums that we've got, like the Facebook group Back to ITSM, which is how a lot of us actually communicate on a regular basis, is through there and Twitter, right? And that's where I'm seeing some of the newbies actually asking their questions, and I'm really enjoying that because they're saying, oh, I know this may have been asked before, or it may sound like a dumb question. And as soon as they say that,
but it could also be intimidating, couldn't it? To someone new coming in, and they look at all this kind of collection of so-called experts, or
the ones that have been around.
And it can be intimidating for them to ask something.
But the response that they get, I love it. The first thing that someone says, no such thing as the dumb question. No, ask away. That's
it's really
why
encouraging.
It's here.
It's a great community. I was just telling a pre-SITS dinner, we had about 23 people booking, and someone said we want to come with our beloved as well, because everybody wants to be part of that exchanging. It's amazing.
It's great, isn't it?
I came all the way, and it has not disappointed me. It's always get better and better.
Actually, I have to say that's one thing I did notice about this conference. To me, at least, maybe it was just because we all met up on the first night, but the international contingent that's been here at this conference, to me, has been much higher than previous years.
Yeah, I think it's possibly because the ITSMF is holding their chapter leaders forum in Paris this week.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah,
there's been a lot of
that makes a lot of
ITSMF people
sense.
coming from overseas.
And of course, this is the first year. This has happened in June, not in April.
Yeah.
And mind you, we've got 4 different countries sitting right here.
This is true.
This is true.
Anyway, I thought we've been told we need to wind up. Unfortunately, we could actually sit here and chat all afternoon, I think, Pat, but it's been a pleasure having you on as a guest. And,
it's nice for a change.
So we'll be hosting with you again shortly.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Cheers.